Witch on the Holy Night. 1. Konnichiwa, Servus und Hallo. Wir fangen wohl mit dem finalen Bosskampf an. Auch wenn wir noch einiges an Platz haben im Regal. Im letzten Part ist Alice fast gegen Toko gestorben und Sojiro hat Alice gerettet. Und dann rief ein dritter Anrufer an. Aoko. Und sie klang nicht gut. Dann beginnen wir mal mit Witch on the Holy Night. Aoko had not hung up, but the line remained silent. Alice set down the receiver, quickly put on her mantle, and made for the entrance, moving her injured body by sheer willpower alone. Along the way, she paused, then turned to Shiro and looked directly at him.
青子に何かあったんだな。
Alice hesitated for a moment before pushing her aside, her anxiety and grabbing his hand.
しずきくん、一緒に来て。
待ってくれ。一緒にってどこに？
相田教会まで。青子の方は営利神父にお願いするしかないから。
相田教会って病院の横にある？
そう。知っているのなら問題ないわね。説明する手間も省けたわ。
Alice left the mansion and made her way down the tree-lined path. She was clearly determined, but the look in her eyes betrayed her pain.
アリス、連絡をするなら電話は？
So she asked Alice, whose grip on his hand was light but unyielding.
教会の人にならもう知らせた。もしかして病院のことを言っているなら、それこそ無駄よ。ハイヤーなんて言うけど、空を飛ぶわけでもないし。今は。
Alice had thought of everything. She turned to the mansion and lightly snapped her fingers. In response, the window opened, and countless starlings took flight.
1番隊は索敵。2番隊と3番隊は現場に向かって応急処置を。在庫切れになってもいいわ。まだ生きているなら、青子の心臓を止めないで。
Alice commanded the birds firmly.
しずきくんは裏庭から青子の自転車を持ってきて。
So she let slip the skills comfort at the thought of that thing, the custom-made red bicycle. When he was cleaning the incinerator, Urquhart verbally assaulted him for nearly scratching it.
いいけど、どうするつもりなんだ、アリスは。
ここにいるより教会にいた方がしずきくんは安全よ。それに私も急がないといけない。しずきくん、二人乗りできる？
He had seen others ride tandem and was confident he could do it, only if it was a bicycle that concerned him. His frame was so light, so Shiro was unsure it could support both the weights.
ん？二人乗りってことは、アリスが後ろに乗るのか？
できないならいいわ。
Alice turned away as if to snap him, then began walking. Unfortunately for Shiro, he was now on the bad side.
いや、そういう意味じゃないんだ。アリスとはイメージが合わなかったから。
Ignoring his pleas, she continued briskly toward the woods. There was no way she was going to ride the bike now. Sensing a stubborn streak, he desperately called out for her.
待った。今のはこっちが悪かった。すぐに持ってくるから、怒るのはつけにしておいてくれ。
Alice stopped, As soon as he saw her stop, he hurried to the rear courtyard, grabbed the key from where it's hanging, and used it to unlock Aoko's bicycle. By the time she should have brought it back to the front, Alice was continuing toward the forest.
アリスの性格なんとなくつかめてきたな。
Muttering to himself, he started the bike. He rested his foot on the pedal, and let it light but sturdy. Confident the bike could support his weight, and Alice, he began pedaling.
アリス
She turned as he called out to her, before shooting him a piercing glare.
行こう。後ろの荷台に乗ってくれ。でもクッションがないから痛いと思う。辛かったら言ってくれ。止めるから。
私は大丈夫よ。しずきくんが嫌じゃなければの話だけど。
He had hit the nail on the head. Alice definitely had the grudge over the smallest things.
そういうことなら問題ないよ。アリスが後ろにいてくれるのは嬉しい。それで行き先は間境界でいいんだな。
Unabashed and undaunted, he plowed on. His tone seemed to ease Alice's mood. She nodded calmly and took her seat on the large rack above the rear tire.
手を回すけど、私が触れても平気。
ん？大丈夫だよ。体力があるのはさっき証明しただろ。
Alice silently rubbed her arms around Sojiro. Once she had held on tightly enough, he gripped the handlebars.
よかった。
He said quietly.
何が良かったの？
Sojiro turned to her, an ambushed expression on his face, and then began pedaling vigorously. He let go of the brakes, and the bicycle hurried down the Shirizuka step in line. Surprised by his sudden speed, Alice gasped. And clasped Sojiro tighter. She wanted to protest, but stopped when she saw the serious expression on Sojiro's face. Instead, she decided to tighten her grip. And the nice guy, a young girl, had put her faith in a young boy. Fast in the roller coaster, the bicycle hurried town toward Misaki Town Station. Around the station there was no sign of cars or people. But the town slept under a snowy blanket. Two people were racing like the wind. The boy spoke.
本当によかった。二人乗りが思ったより簡単で。
But he was always alone in his relief. It was their first bicycle ride together, and they spent it speeding down an empty highway. The boy's words were lost to the howling wind, fortunately. In spite of the late hour, there were still lights on in the church. Originally, the only light at this time of night came from the entrance. The sleepless hospital, ever vigilant and ready to receive patients. However, this was quite town with little nightlife. The hospital saw perhaps one emergency patient per night, however, and was not equipped to handle two nights sole patient. It was a little before 1 o'clock in the morning. Leaving the bicycle outside, the two headed into the church. With a snowy-covered roof, the church looked like it was wearing a white hat that lit up the darkness. In the entrance stood a tall shadow.
クオンジさん。
The man's voice was placid. Dressed in a long coat, he had been waiting for Alice.
エイリ神父、青子は？
ユイカが見ています。私が駆けつけた時には手遅れでした。青崎の家に伝令を願いたいのですが。
青子はそれを望まないわ。それにあちらも今は城に囚われているそうです。今夜の相手は真っ先に青子の祖父の動きを封じたようですから。
Was für ein Schloss! The two exchanged pleasantries. so Shiro did not move from the foot of the stairs.
おや、そちらは。
Though the thought was he calm, his words had an edge to them. As if to protect Toshiro from his gaze, Alice stepped between them.
彼は青子の使い魔。契約はまだなされていないけれど。
使い魔ってアリス。
Toshiro was about to complain, but Alice shut him up, firing glare. Then Albert said, just shut up and play along.
そうですか。そのような申告はありませんでしたが、届けが遅れたのは不問としましょう。外部の魔術師と交戦中でしたからね。あなたたちはその撃退を最優先にした。
Alice nodded in thanks.
では通ります。彼の同行を許可しなさい。
ご自由に。私はこれより朝廷に向かいます。管理者が変わるのなら、両教会への資料を用意しなければいけませんので。ああ、留守中は律香に任せてありますから、必要なものがあれば彼女に。
As was passing the baton, Papa Eri exited the church. Toshiro took two full steps back to give him a wide berth. The priest had dignified air about him. To put it bluntly, he was strikingly beautiful. Straight nose, glistening lips. Not a single imperfection in his mildly effeminate face. But that only went as far as appearance. His manner lacked any hint of softness or grace. Just by looking at him, you could tell he was dependable like tempered steel. Despite being somewhat unapproachable, the priest disappeared silently into the night, the darkness of his coat overpowering the moonlight. In awe, Toshiro watched him leave.
なんか仙人みたいな人だな。
In his own way, Toshiro was expressing affection. For some reason, his party airy distant tone made him feel nostalgic. Alice gave Toshiro a deathly stare.
気を許さないで。彼は教会の人間よ。私たちを監視する側だけど、今回は彼の手を借りるしかなかっただけ。許されるなら真っ先に消えてほしい人間だから。
Her curse ringing in the air, Alice placed a hand on the doors to the chapel. They were twice her height and who knows how heavy. It did not look like she could open them anytime soon. Toshiro climbed the stairs 3 at a time and helped Alice push the towering doors inward. The dim light of the chapel brought the familiar scent of burning oil. The escalation interior was breathtaking. The tall ceiling, the stained glass, windows of every wall. It felt intended to illustrate the presence of the Holy Spirit within those chambers. Like the foyer in the Conde estate, there was not a single heater. The bitter cold made the chapel feel more severe.
あっちゃん、こっちよ。
The gentle voice echoed through the chapel, incongruous of its surroundings. It was the voice of a woman.
リスカさん、奥。
Alice made her way past the rows of pews toward the front altar. So she closed the large doors and hurried after her.
早かったわね。これから迎えに行こうと思ったのに。使える足があったから。後ろの彼。足って、あれ？あなた。
あ。
So she shot himself surprised, seeing the woman. They stared intently at each other, wondering what the other was doing here.
知り合い
Yep, aus Bonuskapiteln.
ああ、うん。まずいことに知り合い。宗十郎さん、引っ越したって話だけど、もしかしてあっちゃんのところに下宿してるの？
Yup. Sojiro nodded. Alice turned visibly sour at the unexpected development.
どういうこと？しずきくん、律香さんとはどういう関係？
関係ってお魚屋さんでしょっちゅう割引してもらったり、荷物持ちを頼んでみたり、たまにお茶飲んだりする主婦の友みたいな。
意味がわかりません。律香さん結婚していないでしょう。
Needless to say, Sojiro was not a house's best friend, and others suggested, but there were more assurances at hand.
うわ、そこを突っ込むのか。あっちゃん、私にだけは一切妥協がないのはどうかと思うの。
律香さんの場合、どこまで本気かわからないから。おかしなところは全部追求しておかないといけないだけよ。
あら素敵。仲のいい姉妹みたいね、私たち。じゃあその信頼に応えて本当のこと言うと、彼とは町内会の顔見知りよ。スパイ行為とかそういうんじゃないし、そもそもそんな器用な人じゃないでしょ、宗十郎さんは。
Neighborhood Association?
本当？
Alice stared straight at Sojiro to let him know she was mad at him for hiding this from her.
本当だ。魚屋でバイトしてる時に知り合った人だ。前に親切にしてもらったんで、お礼にイワシを1匹サービスしたら、それ以来ごひいきに。
Er ist unehrlich.
そうそう。商店街で買い物してれば嫌でも宗十郎さんとは顔見知りになるわ。あっちゃんも怒るぐらいなら買い物に来ればいいのに。密かな商店街のアイドルです。
アイドルとは人気者という意味で、値切りやすいかもって意味じゃないような。
His apparent popularity would have to be questioned another time. Collecting herself, Alice focused on the door in the recess of the church.
律香さんの事情は知りませんが、彼は青子の連れです。その他に説明はいりますか？
ああ、やっぱりそういうことなのね。ま、言いたいことはいろいろあるけど、今はそれどころじゃないし。ええ、了解したわ。他ならぬあっちゃんの頼みだし、特殊な例だけど、彼はこちらで保護しましょう。
Alice nodded and began walking onto the door.
アリス、
ダメよ、宗十郎さん。
As Sojiro was about to follow Alice, Riska stopped in his way.
あなたは言ってはいけません。彼女たちに任せなさい。
She asserted bluntly. Meanwhile, Alice had reached the door and entered further into the chapel.
言ってはいけないって。
あなたのためよ。青子の容体は普通の人が見ていいものじゃない。気分を悪くするだけ。それとも嫌な思いをしてもいいくらい青子。
Shiro was not able to give an immediate answer. It had finally hit him just how bad the state Aoko must be in. Based on Alice's condition, when he found her, he intuited that Aoko's adjustment might even be worse. He tried to manage her expression instead, but could not.
青崎相手に心配なんかしません。
Literally, he had never been worried about her before. Not truly.
でも会いに行くのね。
はい。
He answered her reflexively. Riska sighed at the boy's naivety, but nonetheless stepped aside.
どうぞ行ってらっしゃい。アリスさんが使ったドアから入って4番目の部屋よ。今一番取り込んでる頃だから、ゆいちゃんの邪魔だけはしないように。
Sojiro thanked her and went after Alice, leaving Riska Zeus, the self-proclaimed everybody's friendly neighbor, alone.
さて、ゆいかあたりなら止めるんでしょうけど、ま、私は宗十郎さんの味方だし、傷つく男の子とか大好物だし。
Is it really broken?
少々スパルタと自覚しておりますが、これも親切な姉心と思って宗十郎さんには後悔していただきましょう。
Mann, bist du böse. She spoke with force, but her words echoed aimlessly around the chapel. With a sigh, she shrugged her shoulders and made the sign of the cross in a rather unpolished manner. The sound of the Judge's footsteps grew fainter. His lack of hesitation had left a pain in her heart, and not because he did not look back at her, but because he was choosing to ignore the primal fear inside him. An elderly man once said, "An animal's death and a human's are two different things. You may think they are the same, but they differ to their core. Our heads have known the difference since the dawn of man. An animal's corpse, be it a pig's or a deer's, is different. If the swing of an axe or a machete is violent, then so must a human corpse be. Therefore, before you see one with your own eyes, you should at least understand it with your ears. Listen closely, Sojiro. When a person dies, blood flows like a crimson river. It's too much to bear. Perhaps because he was not used to the stone path beneath his feet. Sojiro's mind wandered back to the words he would hear as a child. The instant he opened the door, there was a palpable change in the air. The room was small, with only a simple bed and a small wooden dresser, and there on the bed was lying on her side. Tending to her was the woman he had just seen in the chapel, Ritsuka. No, she only looked a lot like her. Her eyes were closed, her garments covered in blood. He had met her maybe once before. Yurika Sus, a nun at church, was doing something too. Yukia held a pair of scissors and some thread. Her hands moved delicately yet quickly as though playing an organ. Her movements were precise, as if it was flawlessly reading sheet music. One by one, the supply bandages dismissed. Bandages recently applied to wounds were quickly replaced with fresh ones. Gauze was placed everywhere to try and cope with the amount of blood. One spike cloth was now dyed red and discarded. The dressings scattered around the floor resembled roses. In a wilted rose garden, the nun played her organ. The scenes looked unlike a reality, so she knew. It was clear why the air had changed. There was a savage odor in the room. Even though he was experiencing it for the first time, he knew what it was. The smell burned his lungs. He could not bring himself to look at the bed. Fighting his feelings, his eyes refused to move there. He noticed Alice next to the bed. Ever expressionless, she looked like a statue next to a grave, except she was trembling ever so slightly. It could have been from fear, anxiety, rage, a combination of the three. Before her lay on the verge of death. But whose life, it was difficult to tell, with only a glance. Some sort of puppet covered in bandages. Perhaps her hair should be beautiful, but it fell flat, disheveled, despite her short breaths. Her chest convulsed, up, down, up, down. Fasciculars through the fort was, so she recalled the rodeo machine on the roof of the department store. Ah, the painkillers and the anesthesia could not have been working. New bandages were soaked in crimson in a second. Her fingernails bit into the sheets. The face twisted in agony. Anesthesia would not be enough, so if she was still alive, she must be conscious too. It bothered him that no one seemed too concerned about this. In this stage, she would surely lose her mind before her life. Amaoko. In short, the boy never wanted to see anything like this ever again. Bed sheets should be white, not red, with every blink the color depended. Mine is a blau, Sojiro. Sojiro was finally forced to accept the bleeding mess in the center of it was her. He felt the blood surge in his veins. The squeaking of the bed, the snip of the scissors, the gasp of agony, it all faded. All he could hear was his own pounding heartbeat. The smell of blood she choked up and sent a wave of nausea through him. His knees abandoned him. It was perfectly understandable. His brain had to shut his consciousness off to protect itself. The mind could only take so much reality. He would give anything to never see something like that again.
そうか。青子ちゃんは全部わかっているんだね。自分だけのことじゃなくて、この後に起きることも、何が残って何が残らないのかも、全部まっすぐに受け止めている。それでも自分であり続けられるということは、とても強いことなんだよ。
And on she went, a kind of like her smile, but she just had to go and say the one thing I wished she hadn't. The last day of middle school seemed so long. As the ephemeral cherry blossom petals danced around my little dream was crushed. I would never really consider myself strong. At least until I began remembering those words from time to time. Das wohl Aokos Kurat meint, also was Hirn gerade denkt.
青崎は分かってると思ってた。いや、きっと分かってるんだな。だからそこが強いんだろうね。
And that an idiot who said things like that had appeared in my life. I knew I always judged people more harshly than those around me. But to have someone I would only known for a few days point that out was like a stab in the chest. Not only did the words sound so familiar, they made me so angry I couldn't see straight. Only him and one other person have ever said anything like that to me. Then again, I suppose my sister said the same thing without actually saying it. You are different from us. But me being me, I took it as a curse rather than a compliment. My actions, my choice, my morals, all good and bad I've done. When all said and done, I'm really any better than everyone else. Of course I am. I never sacrificed myself for those around me. They just had to call me strong, true to myself, in spite of how alone, stubborn and rigorous I know I can be. When I was younger, it only confused me. I mean, I don't know any other way. I am who I am. The frustrating fact is simply don't have the courage to give up. So, why? Why do I get treated special for doing what comes naturally? The sunlight stirred her. Maybe it was the pain from having her whole body held together by arcane threads. But Oko felt like she would be silly. She could have a silly dream. She gulped air through her painful parched throat. Grey rays of light shone through a small window, bringing her back to reality. Unable to bear it, Oko attempted to roll over. Except she could only move her right arm. She tried lifting her arm, but couldn't feel anything past her elbow. Once she stopped concentrating on her bandaged arm, It fell to the bed like a stone.
さて
Orko took her surroundings, moving only her eyes. Evidently, she had been asleep in this bed. Unable to feel certain parts of her body, she felt like a robot. The room was tiny and undecorated. It was like an apartment without a tenant. Judging by the good repair, she guessed she was in either church. Outside it seemed closer to noon in the morning. Clouds filled the sky as usual, dulling the sun rays. Idly, she thought that it could be enough to melt the snow outside. And then she finally noticed the figure of a girl. Next to her bed, Alice Ruanji was sitting in a chair, unmoving.
おはようアリス
She called out to her, all too casually. It was more difficult to talk than she thought. Alice was her typical stoic self. Although Aoko did notice a glimpse of concern in her eyes.
寝てないんでしょ肌が荒れてる
努力はしたわけど瞳子さんに飲まされたものが解毒されるまで眠れそうにないの。半端な痛みはこういう時に生ぬるいわね。
Well, Alice's uncharacteristically vulgar comment helped Orko feel a little more like her usual self. She felt reassured having her competent arms by her side instead of a concerned neighbor.
そうアリスもやられたの状況は大体予想してるけど一応細部を聞かせてくれない
Orko remained horizontal as he spoke with a cool tone. Despite Orko's condition, Alice granted her request. After all, they'd known each other for 2 years. Alice knew exactly that kind of anesthesia that Arasaki needed right now. Alice Ruanji's battle for Toku Arasaki ended in the former's victory. The famed troll was special familiar even among fairy tale monsters. While lacking the incredible reality warping abilities of Flat Snark, its sheer mass, durability and strength were second to none. Toku's room magecraft was rendered completely ineffective by stone armor. In all fairness to Toku, most magecraft would not stand a chance against the bridge giant. The reasons lay in the mystic's body. As a general law of magecraft, the mystic will lose to stronger, older mystic. The history of the bridge giant dated back well over 1,000 years. The origins could be traced to the 1st century, when Britannia was conquered by the Romans. Conversely, despite having roots dating back to the Age of Gods, runes had unfortunately been lost to time. Rune magecraft was little more than an attempt to revive and use a dead art. However, monsters from fairy tales like the troll were different. They lived on in the hands of Alice Ruanji. The magical world was vast, but one could probably count on one hand the number of magecraft that still functions after being shattered into existence a millennia ago, as Alice Ploys did. In contrast, Toku's rune user was only about 2 decades old. Carving a rune took only a moment. There was no way a quick spell could defeat the personification of London Bridge in Alice's homeland. Muss gerade kurz WhatsApp schalten, pardon. That being said, a beast had appeared that surpassed even those from fairy tales. Beowulf, the golden beast. It seemed absurd to compare a small and relatively powerless wolf to a towering stone giant. The famous troll's attacks were earthquaking, and a director from his 50-ton strikes would smash anything to paste. While a glancing blow would still create Mimi's meat. And yet the beast had attacked head on and torn right through it. The wolf's fur bristled, and the creature metamorphosed like a liquid. It was breathtaking display. The wolf howled at the moon, as with joy, and streaked forth like a belt of golden light. In an instant, the duel was decided. The radiant spear of a wolf flew straight through the giant's chest and sank his teeth into its heart. The troll exploded. Chunks of stony muscles rained down. Luminous force scattered through the wind. Two mysteries appeared without a trace and returned from whence they came. The curtain fell on a battle straight out of mythology. There among the rubble of the fairy tale monster was the golden wolf standing like a flame. What came after could barely be described as a battle. It was more like a slaughter of defeated pawns. The wolf leaped at Alice, disemboweling her with ease. The claws cut through the protective wards on Alice's coat like a hot knife through butter. The golden wolf. This wolf, which understood human speech, could only be the magical creature known as the werewolf. Werewolves were the forest people of Western Europe, with origins far more ancient than the fabricated vampire legend of the continent. However, none were known to have golden coats. It was said that the most elite werewolves bloodlines boasted silver fur. Silver werewolves were pack leaders, and werewolves of that caliber were considered phantasmal rather than merely magical creatures. But the golden werewolf was superior even to that, and so transcended human knowledge. Alice's conscious ploys were among the ultimate mystics to have been created by humankind. Therefore, the golden wolf could only have been a mystic born of the planet. The celestial body has been active for millions, even billions of years. Occasionally, the miraculous drops of a creation spills over into our own current world. Warte. Heißt das, der goldene Wolf ist so etwas wie Ark? Okay, the mystic had to be over 3,000 years old. A human mage. No, any mage living in the current magical paradigm would be helpless against the golden wolf. Not even Fury there would stand a chance of defeating it. Which meant that his werewolf was Orchid Alice's worst nightmare.
そう。アリスがお手上げの相手だものね。私がどうにかできるはずもなかったわけだ。でも要は魔術でなければいいのよね。テムズの動力は魔力だけど、テムズのパンチは純粋な衝撃でしょ。当たりさえすればぺしゃんこじゃないの。
残念だけど、あれ基本は狼の姿なだけで、状況によって形を変えるわ。テムズの腕を受け止めた時は大猿みたいになっていたし、機関銃やロケットで狙ってもかわされるか、体の硬い生き物に変化して防ぐんじゃないかしら。
地球上の生き物なら何にでも変われるってことか。でもまあ質量までは無理かな。基本は2メートル台の生物のいいとこ取りってあたりで勘弁してほしいわね。ねえ、すごく関係ないけど、深海の生き物に変わられたらちょっと怖いと思わない？
Orchid narrowed her eyes as she bemoaned the creature's existence. Wie kommt sie auf Seekreatur? The conversation appeared to have revived her fighting spirit. Once again, her eyes were were focused and her thoughts were clear. Oak was back to her usual self.
でその後はアリスうまく逃げられたの？
いいえ、私もあの狼にやられたわ。
Alice explained how the wolf had pinned her to the ground. Incidentally, she kept the part of her sushi roll for short. Alice herself was not entirely sure, but she felt it necessary to leave most of the information out.
アリスが相手をした後、休む間もなく私のところに来たわけか。初めから昨日で決着をつけるつもりだったんだ、兄貴。姉妹かな。ここぞって時のタイミングは一緒だったの忘れてた。切り札は見せたからには敵を殲滅しなくちゃいけない。姉貴は視点を残り2つにしておいて、自分の正体を告げてこっちの戦力を負けさせた。その時点で奥の手を投入してくることは覚悟してたけど、まさか人狼なんて騎馬物とはね。
Besonders das keine mehr existieren sollen. Oak let out the heavy sigh. Alice nodded slightly in agreement.
それはそれとして、宗十郎がアリスを助けに行くなんてね。感謝しなくちゃいけないんだろうけど、バカな真似してくれたわ。私が東子の立場なら、報復の可能性は一つ残らず排除する。私たちがどうにかなった後、猫の手首ひねるみたいに片付けられるわよ、あいつ。
Das stimmt.
しずきくんならこちらで保護してもらってるけど。
Orko's eyes widened.
うわ、どういう風の吹き回し？アリスがあいつの世話を焼くなんて。
だって放っておいたら青子が怒ると思って。
Ja, 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 Alice. Du hast Sushiro lieb gewonnen. Alice responded with her eyes closed. Orko frowned in silent indignation, as if she wanted to protest where Alice got that idea from.
まあいいけど、それじゃあ今ここにいるんだ、宗十郎。姿。
Still unable to move her neck, she looked around as best as she could.
彼なら気分を悪くして倒れたわ。今はエイリ神父の寝室を借りているけど。
Orko furrowed her brow and collapsed. Sure, it was under the church protection, but had Orko set the wheels in motion for his death?
何があったの？一体。
Alice paused for a moment before carefully answering the question.
それが彼、あなたを見て嘔吐したの。
She decided to be blunt. Orko was taken aback. For several seconds, dim sunlight leaked through the window. Once she had found her voice again, she muttered.
いいけど、ひどい侮辱よね、それって。
Perhaps amused or perhaps exhausted from staying up all night, Alice cracked a tiny giggle.
何よ、そんなにおかしい、アリス。
さあ、どうかしらね。けど、しずきくんにも言い分はあるでしょう。
Orko appraised her physical state. She was dressed in the hospital gown. Bandage covered the majority of her body. Her right leg was a plaster cast, so she could move her right arm, and she brought her bandaged fingers up to her throat.
そっか、思い出した。あのガキ、まず私の首元に噛みついたんだっけ。すごかったわよ、首が噛み砕かれるのって。ゴキーンって音が頭の中に響いて、気持ち悪いったらなかったわ。ち、あそこから好き勝手やられたもんだから、つい忘れてた。
Orko sounded upbeat, but the look in her eyes was anything but. She had been torn to pieces, but her life had been mercifully spared. At least she hadn't been dismembered. She had been beaten and her bones broken. Magic crest containing the Aokusagi ass decorated her body. Even if her spine was broken, as long as the body was alive, the crest would piece it back together. Despite the crest easing the pain a little, she still hurt enough to want to kill the wolf 100 times over. I'ma be a wolf.
視点は全部壊された。これで岬市の霊脈はフリーってわけね。全容を把握してるのはうちらだけの特権だったけど、トウコは昔から知ってる以上、解析の手間もいらないと。真剣な話、所有権の書き換えまで何時間かかると思う？
トウコさんなら2日かからないでしょうね。支店の修復は土地そのものに任せるしかない。支店のプロテクトが治る頃にはこの町はもう彼女のものよ。
明日の夜明けとともに破産する我が身とはね。それでアリスの方はどうなの？
思考魔術だけなら少しは。あとは小道具に頼ることになるでしょうね。
Warte, was trinke ich doch mal? Leo. Trinkets. Ah, Plunder. Wort, das liegt auf Deutsch.
ああ、お話にならないか。
Elko went silent again. Also ist es vorbei. Game over. Staring straight at the ceiling. Oh, Alice knew it all too well what that look meant.
それでもやるんでしょ、青子は。
まあね、私諦めるのってできないから。で、そういうアリスはどうなのよ？
私は一度自分のものになったものは決して人には渡さない。
Orko muttered in agreement to Alice's terse response. Alice's intense attachment to her possessions was enough to make even Orko shiver. Once something is mine, it stays mine. To take a step further, betrayal was an unforgivable sin. The personal motto was further proof of her uncompromising nature.
オッケー、決まりね。
Ich habe Mitleid mit ihrem Boyfriend, wenn sie mehr einen hat.
じゃ、悪いけどもう少し休ませて。今晩までには何とか動けるようにするから。
If the nun who stitched her back together had heard it, she would have fainted. Or could barely even eat in her current condition. Even so, Alice nodded and stood up. As Orko's partner, she knew that once her mind was made up, she had to trust her. Suddenly, the girl in black began to take her leave. She stopped in front of the door, her hand to her mouth.
アリス？
Orko was curious, suspecting that Alice had something silly to say again. Quite the contrary. Instead of blushing, Alice furrowed her brow, like she was thinking over a difficult riddle.
アリス？
Orko called out, but Alice remained with her back to her roommate.
なんで間に合ったのかしら。
She spoke as if the words had accidentally burst out from her thoughts. Alice's question was about something I could not possibly have guessed.
あの時もそう。私たち始発で帰ってきたのに。
She carried on mumbling at the door. Unable to find an answer, Alice gloomily put her hands on the doorknob.
言いたくないなら別にいいけど。何がどうしたっていうのよ、アリス。
Alice did not respond. She opened the door to leave the room and left a few words hanging in the air.
どうでもいいことだけど、ゆいかさんにはしずきくんは見えなかったそうよ、青子。
The door closed with a thud.
そりゃまた珍しい。
Orko numbered to herself on the bed, seemingly slightly happier. Blind in spur of Yurika's Zeus, saw the world through her other senses. She was especially sensitive to enemies, or those who bore ill will, and typically viewed almost everyone as a threat, presumably because she was the easiest thing to pick up on. So when she said she couldn't see through, that meant he was completely harmless. And then, the Times Wheeler decided to pay the small sick room a visit. So she looked at the stiff breeze, could knock him over. It made Oko wonder who the real patient was.
何しに来たのあんた。
Furuoko could barely move. She was still able to give him the cold shoulder. His expressions gone to show she granted something to other before the beginning to speak, more jealous, more coherently.
アリスが客間で眠ったから礼拝堂にいたんだけど、人が集まりだしたんでこっちに逃げてきた。
あ、礼拝の時間か。クリスマスだってのによくやるわ。
25.12. ist jetzt. It was indeed Christmas, but regular mass was on Christmas Eve. The ones gathering in the chapel must have been truly devoted followers. Tourists were here in Misaki after all, so much so that almost no one visited the area this time of the year. The worshippers must have been locals.
それで別にどうってことないでしょ。探す。
Ork was as distant as ever. She clearly had not forgotten the fact that she wanted that she saw her, and a hint of spite leaked into her voice. Then again,
いや、ちょうどいい機会だからいろいろと聞きたくなって、少し話をしていいかな。
Sister Oko, always in a bad mood, so she did not pick up on anything out of the ordinary. She wanted to tell him to go drink some water because he looked ready to collapse, but he didn't seem aware of his own condition. It would be fair to him, Alice did say Oko was in bad shape, given how unaccustomed to blood so she was. It was no wonder he had fainted.
ああ、そうか。話なんてまだ無理だな。すまない。出直してくる。
So she seemed to have misunderstood Oko being deep in thought, as not having enough stamina to speak. Naturally, that did not sit well with Oko.
待ちなさいよ。話だけなら別に構わないわ。やる気持て余してるし、暇つぶしがてらに相手してあげるわよ。ま、退屈しのぎにしてはちょっとグレード下がるけど、この際贅沢言ってられないし。
So Shura sensed this was going to be rough, but took a seat on the chair next to her bed.
で、何が聞きたいの？
Oko spoke energetically in an attempt to distract from her weakened appearance. Naturally, she knew she was fooling no one.
やっぱり青崎は強いな。安心した。
Shura said nothing in admiration. Oko shoot him unimpressed look in response to the unwanted praise. Was ich mich wundere, wie viel untergeblättert das Kapitel hat. Das will ich gleich mal nachschauen. To the church, a wolf tale. Irgendwie das Gefühl, dass die beiden goldenen Bücher optional sein werden.
ほんと間が悪いわ。いいわよ、別に。私の夢の話だから、そっちが気に病むことは。
She glowered, remembering. Come to think of it all, Almost everything in the dream was here in the church, turning her dour expression into an irritated one.
やめやめ、こんなつまんない話。聞きたいことがあるなら手っ取り早く済ませちゃってよ、宗十郎。
よかった。じゃあまず今の状況を聞かせてくれないか。東子さんの話じゃ俺も無関係じゃないそうだし。
Joshua spoke calmly, making Oku wonder if he really understood the gravity of the situation. He was stuck with Emmy now. He was defenseless and needed protection. Neither Oku nor Alice could help him, and the church could withdraw their sanctuary at any moment. He had picked a side that had turned him from innocent bystander into a target. The answer he sought was simply as that. He knew the fact he was not a mage, and was therefore powerless.
まあ、それでもアリスは助けられたわけだし。
Oku could owe him for that. To say thanks, she tried to at least give him the whole story up until now.
よし、今までの経緯も含めて軽く説明してみましょうか。私も何か得るものがあるかもしれないし。
Oku composed to herself before beginning her explanation. The battle began at the end of November. A lot happened since then, including meeting Sujiro.
事の起こりは1ヶ月前、三崎市に貼られた結界の端っこが何者かに消されたのが発端だった。私が跡継ぎになってから5度目の三崎市を狙う敵の登場ってわけ。今回の敵は私たちとは直接戦わず、まず土地を奪うところから始めたわ。今までのやつは私たちを半人前と舐めていたから、大抵は真正面から仕掛けてきて、勝手にアリスの猟犬の餌食になったんだけど、まあそれはどうでもいいとして。
Kibble? Füllkübel, Ablaufkübel, Tonne.
町の結界には2種類あって、侵入者を見つけるものと土地の力を有効利用するものがあるの。敵が壊したのは土地の結界の方で、これが全部壊されると私やアリスは土地の所有権を失ってしまう。土地のないはぐれ魔術師と同じになっちゃうのよ。もちろんそうならないように侵入者をあぶり出すための結界があるんだけど、こっちに当然よね。今回の敵は私の姉貴青崎東子その人だったんだから。青崎の結界は同族である姉貴を敵とみなさなかった。あるいは姉貴は結界の抜け道、構造の資格をついたのかもしれない。もともとうちの後継者はあの人だし、それぐらいの知識はあったでしょう。
Das stimmt.
そうして姉貴は私たちに見つかることなく好き勝手に結界の支点を壊し始めた。時間をかけてゆっくり壊していったのは外からやってきた部外者を演じていたからでしょうね。さすがに連続して壊されればこっちも身内の犯行だと疑うし、うち親戚である浅木家とは仲悪いままだし。
Asagi Family? Wer ist jetzt bitte Asagi? Ich finde, das ist nur Asagami? Asagi. The Saya branch from the Aosaki clan during the events of Mount Yoru who mentioned that Aosaki and Asagi were still on bad terms. Okay, dann Wiki haben wir keinen. Haben wir keine Asagis. Okay.
姉貴の芝居に騙された私たちが間抜けなんだけど、セオリーとして結界崩しは長丁場になるものなの。管理地の結界は強固に作られているからね。普通は半年単位での攻防になる。攻める側はまず結界を形取る視点が何個あるか、それがどの5大要素でくくられているか、もちろん管理地の魔術師たちの目を盗みながら。対して守る側は侵入者がいることに気づくから、悪さをされる前に敵の拠点を見つけ出して
Logisch.
外敵を排除する。こんな感じで結界崩しは長期戦、あるいは前哨戦になるものなの。大抵は攻める側が視点を壊すぞとアピールして土地の持ち主を翻弄疲弊させてから、魔術師同士の直接対決で決着がつくわ。なんで結界を全部壊す必要はないのよ。管理地の持ち主を始末した方が早いし、その後は術式さえ解読しちゃえば土地を結界ごと横取りできる。わざわざ壊して作り直すより、昔からある結界の方が土地に馴染んでいて強力だしで一石二鳥でしょ。
That was awkward, Alice without doubt. They never thought the enemy would waste time and effort needed to break all tissues.
だから私とアリスはとりあえず受けに回った。視点を探すために町を調査している敵を待ち伏せて、これを片っ端から倒そうって。でもそのうちの一つがケチのつき始めだった。三崎町の公園で山張って待ち受けていた時、どうでもいい第三者が覗き見してやがったのよ。
Indeed, it was the ultimate taboo in the world of Magecraft. The existence of a mage must never be revealed to outsiders.
その後のことはわかるでしょ。
Und dann passiert die Geschichte von Marusuke no Yoru.
私は敵との小競り合いをアリスに任せて、それより重要な目撃者狩りに専念せざるを得なくなった。言っとくけど、これはあんたのことだからね。そこで我関せずみたいな顔しないこと。
No sooner than Oku said that, Sushiro gave her the exact look. Clearly, he had been listening, but not necessarily understanding.
ま、いいけどね。宗十郎がそんなだから秘密は漏れなかったんだし。で、あんたっていう目撃者を消そうとした私の単独行動は敵にしても都合のいいものだった。強敵であるアリスがいないんだから、敵はこれを機会に私を始末しようと特注品の人形を差し向けたと思っていたけど、あれはただの嫌がらせね、間違いなく。そうでなきゃ私そっくりの人形なんて派遣するかっての。
Sushiro nodded, thinking back to the Aoko replica.
あれのことは忘れてちょうだい。
Das wird er nicht.
まあ、そこから先はあんたもうすうす知ってるでしょ。私とアリスは敵との戦いに専念することになって、毎日のように捜査の手を空振って。大体の経緯はこんなところよ。
She stared down at the body, as if recalling what happened would help her accept the current state. Under the sheet, magical energy steadily flowed through her partly banished body.
青崎、これまでの君たちの話は分かった。けど、肝心の今の状況はどうなっているんだ？
Sushiro's specific concern was the reason Aoko was lying there. More than anything, he wanted to know what happened to her the night before.
バカね。状況も何も完全に私たちの負けじゃない。
Joshua told she would have raised both hands sarcastically in celebration if she could.
負けた？
そう。事実は正しく受け止めなくっちゃね。5つの視点が全部壊された時点で勝負はついたの。管理地の所有権は宙ぶらりで、明日には東湖の手に渡るでしょう。で、それを阻止したいこっちは、私もアリスもこのありさま。
Ich finde die Haare da beim Ohr schon irgendwie komisch aus.
もう立場は逆転したから、これから私たちは挑戦者。つまりはぐれ魔術師ってことよ。
Which meant that Oko added to Shiro only had a few more days with which to utilize the church services. And church were not only an arm of the association, but also a branch of the Holy Church that monitored heresy. Oko and Alice were owners of Misaki's spiritual lands, but they belonged to neither of those organizations. The only reason the church helped them at all was because they were the land's administrators. Once these rights were lost, the church would have no reason to provide any further aid.
エイリ神父はコウモリだから私を助けてくれたけど、ユイカさんは教会の代行者だから、傷が塞がったなら明日にでも出て行けって言ってくる。教会にとっちゃ魔術師なんてもともと排除すべき商売敵だからね。バカリツカはま、泣きつけば力にはなってくれるでしょうけど。
So there is little of what Aoka was talking about.
そうじゃなくて、青崎。昨日の夜、何があったんだ？
Shiro pressed her, and Aoka really wished he had not.
見てわからない。惨敗なんてものじゃないわ。喉に食いつかれる。体中好き放題噛まれまくる。挙句に右のマモなんてなくなってたそうよ。ま、アリスのチョコレートのおかげで出血死は免れたけど。
She knocked her chest around her leg. Aoka constantly spoke harshly, but was trying to hide how much she wanted to revenge for being humiliated. In contrast, Shiro felt empty. The little color he had in his face began to fade. He was repulsed by a terrible situation, or were his instincts telling him to flee? Regardless, he appeared very human.
なんでそこで固まる？あ、そっか。私を見て吐き出しちゃうぐらいナイーブなんだっけ、宗次郎ってば。大丈夫よ、今はくっついてるから。ユイカさんは治療専門だし、私だってただやられてたわけじゃないし。
She gave a reassuring look, but his expression was unchanged. Orchid expected him to worry, but his level of concern made it hard for even her to berate him. Feeling embarrassed, she started talking again.
けど姉切ったらどうやってあんなのを手なずけたんだろう。金の狼なんて伝説の中にしかいないと思ってた。神代の神秘であるあいつには千年クラスの魔術じゃないと太刀打ちできない。かといって殴り合いでどうにかできる相手じゃないし。
Habe mich ausgefragt, weil so wie es ausschaut, ist der goldene Wolf sogar mit Aquate Brunestut verwandt, Type Earth. As image of the night before entered Aoka's mind, she bit her lip in anguish.
金の狼。
Conversely, Bishop Fresh steps Shiro out of a state of shock.
そう、黄金の人狼、金狼って言った方がいいのかな。狼男って言ってもわからないわよね。人間と狼のいいとこ取りみたいなやつと思えばいいわ。野獣というより魔獣の類よ。普通の人狼なら対抗手段はあるんだけど、トウコが連れてるのは黄金の毛並みをした怪物でさ。あれは原初の人狼の血統で魔獣を通り越して幻獣の域に達している。聖域の相手にはそいつらを上回る神秘、積み重ねた時間とか魔術の奥義じゃないと無効化されるのよ。魔術は万能だけど、この年月の差だけは覆せない。ま、人間の魔術師にとっては天敵みたいな自然災害ね。
Her words indicated more aberration than hatred. The way she would whisper about the wolf. She actually made sense to Jiro.
何？
いや、要するに青崎たちじゃかなわない相手なんだな。なんてひどいやつだ。アリスはお腹が裂かれてた。 青崎は傷ついてないところはないぐらいだ。子供なのに。いや、子供だから加減がないのか。
Sushi's face was ghostly pale as he brought a turn up his sleeve. Okubiri nodded in agreement.
ほんと人の体を何だと思っているのかしらね、あのお子さん。なぬ
Ko raised her head. She looked as if he had seen a ghost.
子供って言った？あんたなんでそんなことまで知ってるの？
やっぱりそうなのか。金色の髪なんて2人もいないと思ったんだ。そいつなら一度見かけたことがある。青崎が口にしたような怪物じゃなかったけど、森の奥で木の実が2人がかりでとっちめようなんて怖いこと言い出してさ、金一個ないから止めたんだよ。
His tone was curious, as the things he was trying to articulate. Oko, however, had more pressing matters. Much more pressing.
見たってどこで？
学校の旧校舎。
War irgendwie klar.
そういえば挨拶程度なら話もしたっけ。一度だけアルバイトの時に牛肉50キロを生で届けたことがあって。
この大バカ
A steady slapping sound rang out. Ignoring her wounds completely, Oko had grabbed a slipper and thrown it at Sushiro, unassuming face, as hard as she could. She panted as Sushiro was knocked completely out of his chair. For a while, neither moved.
なんで怒るんだ、青崎。
The boy asked, unfazed as he slowly picked himself up. He sat across-legged as Oko scolded at him like an enemy.
当たり前じゃない。なんでそんな怪しいこと黙ってんのよ、あんたは。
言うほどのことでもない。第一、君たちにこんな話をしても怒られるだけじゃないか。
Oko knew he was right, and so she swallowed her words. She mentioned himself at dinner.
ところで今日、牛肉の山を担いで届けたんだ。一匹丸ごと。いや、あるところにはあるものだね。
If he had actually said it, Oko and Alice's response would have been less than cordial.
そりゃそうだけど、本当に金髪の子供が旧校舎にいたの？
それが青崎の言う人狼かどうか。少なくとも町中の料理店が入れ替わりでおかしな注文を届けてるのは事実だ。
確かに食事のたびにあいつを外に出してちゃ目立つだろうけど。
She didn't want to believe it, but it child had to be the werewolf. Could Toku really have been so careless as to hide him in plain sight? It didn't matter at this point. If the werewolf's habitat revealed, Toku's space had been revealed too. To take over the battlefield, she needed an inconspicuous place to store materials. Misaki High School old building was the perfect place.
つまり全ての鍵はあんたが隠し持ってたってわけね。
隠していたんじゃない。だいたい青崎が裏山の掃除に参加していたらその時に分かったんじゃないか。飛び丸一人に任せず青崎も掃除に出ればよかったんだ。
In response to Sushiro's infable logic, Oko snapped her fingers. Instead of another slipper missile, she let the fearful white collar express how she felt. And with the tightening of the collar, Sushiro realized something. Oko changed. From the bed, she looked down on him with a commanding glare. Though weak from her injuries, she was as sharp as ever. You'd be forgiven for forgetting she was ever a patient. She was raring to fight, if well without saying who her rage was directed at. Sojiro! Kleiner Scherz. Oko responded in a vulnerable tone. Perhaps she had been taken by surprise. Now she had an objective, she had been lost in her own little world.
ありがとう、宗十郎。
He expected her to be sarcastic, but this was different. She was genuinely thanking him. He had never been known to her like this and was taken aback.
とにかくトウコの居場所が分かったのはあんたのおかげだから。で、それがお気に召さなかった？
いや、お礼を言ってもらえるのはいいことだけど、まさかその体でトウコさんのところに行くつもりか。
His tone was less scolded and sympathetic. August simply nodded resolutely.
取られたものは取り返すものよ、宗十郎。それもすぐに相手のものになってしまう前にね。
She sounded unshakable. Even so, she would not back down.
勝ち目がなくてもか。暇はないと言うけど、今はそれ以上に休息が必要だろう。その傷だって今は見れるけど、昨日はひどかったじゃないか。
違うわ、あれは幸運なんかじゃない。そんな玉かっていうのよ、トウコ。
幸運じゃない。
Sie hat sie absichtlich nicht getötet.
そう、トウコはね、私が生き残れる程度の傷にとどめたのよ。だから私は生きてるんだし、トウコは私が行くのを待ってる。お互いがお互いの舞台の幕を下ろすために。嫌だけど、あんたの言葉を借りるならね。
Irritation tainted Aoko's words. From his side, she looked terrifyingly serious. She was ready to fight for her death. Toko had given her a little choice. She should understand Nifa's sister.
殺すために生かしたっていうのか、トウコさんは。青崎はそれが分かっているのに行こうとしている。
そうよ、勝負はついたけど、まだ私たちの話は終わっていないもの。確かに全開してから行った方がいいに決まってるけど、そうしている間にトウコは岬の深部にたどり着く。自分にできることを自分からなくしてしまうのは。
Though the pain in her sure eyes was not as deep as the pain of death, it spoke of the regret she would feel. She did not do everything possible, while blood still flowed through her veins.
納得いったのなら黙ってていい。これは私の戦い。あんたには何の責任も関わりもない。私座して死を待つなんてまっぴらごめんよ。勝つ気があるならいつまでもベッドで寝てるわけにはいかないでしょ。
She was dumbstruck. Oko could not let ever anyone else get involved. Whether it was because she cared or cared less, he could not tell. What he did understand for it was if he wanted to stop her, he would have to do so with his bare hands, and he knew better than to try that. Even so, he had to ask one last question. If he didn't, he would not have been able to live with himself after leaving this room.
わからないな。青崎はなんでそこまでするのか。
Aus
俺
Prinzip.
の君を縛っているのは義務と強制。
There was sadness in his eyes. However, Aoko was unmoved by them.
らしくなく難しいこと聞いてくるのね。いいわ。口にしても仕方のないことだけど答えてあげる。その2つはね、常に私を圧迫してるものだと思う。けど勘違いはしないで。義務も強制も誇りも恐れも周りから与えられたものじゃない。トウコと戦うのをやめたところで祖父は私を叱らないだろうし、アリスも文句は言わないでしょう。ここで逃げてもそれはそれで誰にとってもどうでもいい話になって終わるだけ。本当に意味なんてないのよ、何にだって。でも私はトウコから逃げたりしない。これはただのここにいるっていう存在証明なの。私は単に意味がないからこそできることは全部やるって決めただけなんだから。
With fighting passion, Okazaki had a sad peace. Tsushu was left with a pang in his chest. He did not know why, but her words angered him. Then again, at the same time, her self-confidence had to wonder. Even though she had said that her life had no meaning, her stubbornness gave meaning to everything.
じゃあそれがたとえ
Without thinking, he started to ask other questions. Maybe he wanted to change her mind. Maybe he just wanted to hear her answer.
たとえ他の誰も見ていなかったとしても
It came out as a murmur. Indeed, as no one watching, no one could know that she had fled. This was the situation Oko was in. Even so, she was shut him down instantly.
あら、見てるわよ。少なくとも私自身がね。
Her expression bright, possibly because she had been surprised at having to state the obvious. So she was wide-eyed, shocked, but Oko remained nonchalant.
知らないの、宗十郎。生きてく上で一番の観客っていうのはね、他ならぬ自分自身なのよ。だから人生っていうのは油断ならない。
Das stimmt. So Shiro did not respond to her somewhat exasperated tone, but simply rose to his feet. Irgendwie fühle ich mich durch diesen einen Satz. Nobody watched you more than you. That's why you have to stay on your toes. Richtig beängstigt. Weil das ist exactly das. Ich bin mein schlimmster Richter. He looked defeated, which was not like him at all.
宗十郎、
すまない君が素晴らしいことを言っているのはわかるんだけど俺にはわからない
He meekly walked toward the door. As he placed his hand on the doorknob, he paused. For a few seconds he thought with himself, desperately trying to think of something else to say. No words came forth, and he opened the door, which swung with a strange shriek, and he left the room. After watching him go, Oko turned her gaze toward the window. It was nearly evening. A thin veil of darkness was threatening to descend on the town outside. By evening, only Soshiro remained in the chapel. He sat alone at the end of a pew, slouching helplessly like a guilty believer, ready to confess. The chilly air seeped through the walls, turning breath to mist. The frigid air stole the heat from the body without mercy. Soshiro looked around at the chapel's tall ceiling and spacious hall. The room made the air feel colder somehow. Unsure of what to do with himself, he stared into space. His thoughts were entirely unfocused. First and foremost, he could not understand what the buzzing sensation was in his chest. The time passed by, no answers came. To onlookers, he must have been seemed deep in thought, or in a deep sleep, like he would turn to stone if it left be. Either way, he clearly looked down. The problem was his lack of awareness, not that he was aware of it, of course.
おや、夜間の礼拝とは感心です。
Soshiro raised his head and turned to the where the voice came. Stood before the altar. Was the man from last night, dressed in priestly garbs. How long had he been standing there? Soshiro reverberated dryly through the chapel hall. Soshiro did not have the strength to stand, let alone leave. He just stared at the approaching shadow.
もっとも、この教会に精霊なんていませんけどね。ここ、座りますがよろしいですか？
The priest pointed to Soshiro's pew. Without waiting for an answer, he looked a seat at the opening end.
改めて挨拶を。私は文塚エイリ。この教会の何なんでしょうかね。書類の上では持ち主になるんでしょうか。あなたは静木宗十郎君ですか。なるほど。確か
Father Eric spoke in a gentle but universal tone. He was a throughout egoist. Sushu knew all too well about the people who spoke this way. The individual who cared for him when he first came down from the mountain was one of them. Sushu glanced across at him apathetically. Father Eric seemed unfazed by the lack of direction to the conversation.
少し君と話がしたいのですが。
Sushu responded with a nod. Father Eric replied with an artificial smile.
青子が心配のようですね。
別に律香さんにもそう聞かれましたけど、青崎の心配はしていないんです。
Sushu stared straight ahead as he answered, his voice sounding uncharacteristically weak and unsure.
けど今はずっと彼女のことが気にかかっている。それがなんだかわからなくて、さっき。
簡単ですよ。君は単に青子に嫉妬しているのです。
With those few words, Sushu stepped out of his funk. He clapped his hands and turned toward the priest.
そっか。俺は単に青崎が羨ましかっただけなんだ。
Das glaube ich ehrlich gesagt nicht.
いや、でもそれは困るな。自分の中にそういうところがあるなんて。
Father Eric did not respond to his confession like ramblings.
それで話っていうのは何ですか？
いえ、話というより質問です。君は今まで山奥に住んでいたと聞きました。そこで
気になることですか？
はい、おそらくそれはあなたが他人にその手の不安を感じさせないからです。実際私もそう思いますし。ですからまあこれも縁ですし、私も肩書きがこれですしね。迷える子羊がいるんですから、それなりの務めを
Ich traue keinem Priester im Nasenwurst.
というか。
Father Eric looked at Sushu placidly. His pupils were like black holes. They could suck the soul out of your body.
おかしなことが気になるんですね。その質問というのは。
いえ、ごく自然の疑問ですよ。あなたはなぜ山から降りてきたのか。そこでなら。
Sushu was not sure what he had done, but it sounded as though the priest was accusing him of something. Then again, it was a reasonable question, if a little pointless.
Oh.
Gute Frage. Sushu had no answer. Father Eric ignored the sullen boy and confused him.
山での生活がいかに厳しいものかは私も人並みには知っています。若い頃ちょっとした手違いで遭難したこともありますしね。山での生活はこの上なく簡素です。何しろ生きること以外に時間を割く余裕がない。楽しむために生きるのではなく、生きるためにただ生きる。山での生活に比べれば都市の在り方は楽園以外の何者でもないでしょう。ですが楽園の定義は人それぞれです。
Sushu still did not answer his expression, remained blank. The only sound was the priest's voice echoing around the chapel.
一粒の種の誕生すら喜びになる生活。電気の明かりがどれだけ暖かでも自然のままの厳しい寒さを君は尊んでいたはずです。なのになぜ降りてきたのですか。山にいれば君は幸せだったでしょう。
Das sind wirklich gute Fragen. Father Eric repeats his question. Sushu's mouth remained firmly shut. Not because he did not want to answer, but because he simply did not know how to. All he knew was even if he wanted to go back, he could not.
困ったものです。そこをはっきりさせないことにはいつまでも救いがない。故郷を捨てた理由もわからないのに旅先の土地を愛することなんてまっとうな人間にはできませんよ。これは忠告ですが 全てを無条件に肯定したところで幸福になれるとは限りません。あなたはもう少し自分
Sushiro could not make sense of what he was being told. Only the father's last words made an impression on him. Being fair to yourself is easier than said than done, of course. And what it entailed, Sushiro was uncertain of.
そういえば
Took had mentioned something similar before and it had impressed him. First, sir, now this priest. How could people know things he hadn't even told them?
すごいですね。神父さんっていうのはみんなそうなんですか？
Sushiro is curious as to where the weight on his shoulders had gone to. In a way, one of the strong points is the fact that his emotional scars not show on the surface.
ええ、神父は悩みを暴くのが仕事ですから。ま、大抵は暴くだけで。
悩みを暴くってつまり相談事です。
そういうソフトなのも承っています。私が解決できる悩みなどたかが。
The priest shrugged, looking a little disconcerted. Granted, Sushiro still did not trust Father Eri at all. But at the moment, anyone was a ray of light in his eyes.
じゃあたかが知れた程度の悩みを聞いてもらえますか？
君が青子をなぜ羨むかですね。
Was flawed through the priest could see into his boy's soul with his serene eyes.
まあそういうことです。自分でもどうしてそう思うのかがわからない。でもあなたならそれを知ってそうだ。
知りませんけど、まあ無責任に答えましょうか。それはおそらくあなたには根拠がないからですよ。自分の色がないと例えた方が正確ですが。
Sushiro squinted, trying to understand the priest's complicated yet concise answer.
ほら、そこです。君に優れた部分があるとしたら、山という異界から町に降りて一人で暮らしていけたこと、ようやく慣れた常識の中で青子たちという非常識と関わっても暮らしていけたこと、そうであると努めているにしてもあなたの順応性は際立っている。原因は知りませんが、君には初めから自我というものが第一に現れてはいないのです。何事にも対応できるものの種に交わるほど器用でもない。強いて言うのなら色の乗っていない空白ですかね。風景に溶け込む自然さは素晴らしい人徳ですが、自我がないということは居場所がないということですから、いいことばかりじゃありません。唯かにまで見えないというのは予想以上でしたが、姿なき精霊すら捉えるあれが見えなかったのですから、君の無欲ぶりも筋金入りだ。
As though amused by something, Father Eri grinned. However, Sushiro understood neither the meaning of his smile nor his words.
憶測にすみませんが、青子はあなたを見て反感を覚えたと思いますよ。自分のないあなたは自己を押し通してきた彼女にとって認めがたいものだったでしょうから。そして同時にあなたは青子に自分ではどうしても手に入れられないものを見てしまった。言葉にするとくだらない表現になりますが、そういうことです。先ほどは嫉妬と言いましたが、それは訂正しましょう。君は青子に言葉にするのはそれこそ野暮だ。
Father Eri smiled gently. It was fresh-faced grin that belied his age. Whenever it came to Oko, he seemed to forget his role as a priest. But it was irrelevant to Sushiro.
神父さん、それで結局自分は青子のどこら辺に憧れてるんですか？
Sushiro responded to Father Eri's ramblings by being direct. Some would say the priest had been direct himself, but this was Sushiro and he needed things spelled out.
今のでもわからないと参りましたね。 こういうことは言葉を尽くすほど実感が湧かないものですが、まあ私も神父と呼ばれる身です。あなたは青子の過去を知っていますか？
詳しくは知りません。高校デビューとかおかしな言葉を口にしてましたけど。
全く知らないということですね。いいでしょう。ではしずき君、虐待のない例え話ですが、君は突然自殺しろと言われて従えますか？
自殺？
そう、自殺です。神父である私が口にしていいことではありませんが、青子はね、近いことを求められたのです。15歳の時に。彼女がそれまで積み重ねてきた努力も希望も過去も未来も全て捨てること。今日からお前は違う生き物として生き
Sie
る。
musste die alte Orko töten, um die neue Maya-Orko zu werden.
どうです？それは自己の抹消、未来の死と同じだと思いませんか？
This is what 15th Orko had said about her past. Until middle school, she had led a normal life. Then, out of blue, she became a family heiress in the place of her sister. Becoming a magician meant casting aside the life she had known. She had to leave behind ambitions and prospects and live the life of a mage, something she barely knew anything about. Her life, up to that point, had taught her that everything from that on would bring her misery. The scaffold was not the forceful type. Your sister had failed, now it's your turn, he said. Did Urkel assist? So she could not begin to imagine. All knew that she could not be happy with the hand she was dealt. Schönes Bild. Schule, Straße und Menschen. Even if the life of a magician was attractive, to believe the possibility that Oka could give up her lifestyle up to that point was to not know her at all. Oka was like he put her all into everything. She had probably achieved a lot in these 15 years. Her achievement and prospects were no doubt enough to make anyone jealous. But did she have the conviction to doze away and go back to square one? And square one did not come close to the reality of it. The future she had envisioned for so long would have been obliterated.
青子はどうしたんですか？
いやー、これがもう全くの頑固者でして、立ち会った私でさえどうかと思うぐらい簡単にうなずきました。震える指を懸命に握り込んで、やってやろうじゃないと見栄を切ってね。彼女は祖父の期待や青崎の責任感からではなく、逃げることを嫌って魔術師の道を取ったの
Sie
で
ist
す。
also kein Toaster.
拒むことは逃げではないのでしょうが、青子にはそう思えたんでしょう。逃避という行為はこれまでの自分の時間を否定することになると、今までの自分を嘘にしてしまうのなら、今までの生活に別れを告げることを青子、まあ極端ではありますが、あれは前に進むためなら全てを捨てられる人間なんです。
An affectionate smile crossed Father Erich's face. Rather than signaling his closeness to Aoko, it conveyed the pride of a guardian.
ですが、私も思い違いをしていました。結局はそうなるように、青子は育てられていたのです。彼女の祖父は、東子が家を出ることも、青子が跡継ぎを了解することも読んだ上で、あの形だけですが、私も神父としてさすがにそれはどうかと思いましてね。祖父の思い通りになることはありません。なんなら私とメキシコあたりに逃げませんかと。しかしまあ躊躇なく振られました。その時の彼女の返答は今でも一言一句覚えています。
だって私一人がどんなに泣き叫んでも今の状況は変わらないんでしょ。 私にしかできないなら正面から受けて立つ。たとえ不本意で突然投げ込まれた川の中でだってできる。逃げるなんてのは最後の最後。それまではせいぜい華麗に踊ってやるわ。
The priest recited her words, as recalling it lines from her favorite play. It suddenly seemed like something she would say. The last thing Oko said in the room was she was recovering and probably meant the same. Of course, when the audience is watching, you want their approval. However, approval must come from within first. Oko worked to feel proud of herself before worrying about others' viewed her. She at least wanted to do her job with grace. In response to everything she had lost, she would hang in there, even if it meant going it alone. As for Soshiro envied her, well, it was obvious. Soshiro, she lived her life with her head held high. He was a boy who accepted everything but had nothing. She was a girl who threw it all away but never lost a thing. He stood in the meeting room alone, seeing the ugliness within and the sublime outside. Looking back, he felt realized what was eating at him.
もういいでしょう。君は青子の容姿に感じ入ったのではなく、青崎青子という生き方に感じ入ったのです。ま、青子は青子でれっきとした美人ですが。
Soshiro nodded. From the day he first met her, that was indeed how he had felt. Just look at him now to realize it. The strength in her eyes and the unwavering will had captured his heart.
なんかすごい汗我慢だ。
本当に小娘のくせにギネス級の頑固さです。
For Eddie spoke from the heart. Soshiro raised his head, gave him a small grin and scratched his cheek so many hours, faced brooding like an idiot. A part of him still felt strange, but it didn't bother him to leave the question unsolved for now. Unable to stay, still he stood up. He couldn't care less about the Osaki family mates' battles between Aoko rushing off to her death. Right now he just wanted to see her face.
お待ちなさい。病室は立ち入り禁止です。
The cold word echoed around the chapel. The Rishochu was about to head back to Aoko. The sightless sister must have been waiting by the altar. She moved quickly to block his path.
ゆいかさん、今病室には入れないんですか？
はい。しばらく人よけをしてほしいとクオンジ様からことづかっています。
アリスが？
She was suspicious of why Alice would have said that. He could understand being kept out if Aoko was being treated or her condition had worsened, but this seems different. Besides, Aoko herself said the treatment had finished.
人がいいのですね、シスターユイカは。そんな方便をしなくてもいいんですよ。はっきり言ってあげればいい。今から病室に行っても無駄です。と、青子はとっくに出発しているんですから。
エイリ神父。
The priest began to explain everything from the view he still sat in. About the things he said, so she had spoken about, and why he and a stranger would be so concerned about a person he knew nothing about. It all becomes clear to Soshiro.
初めからそのつもりだったんですね。
Soshiro was full of anger, but Father Eri did not flinch.
申し訳ありません。青子にあなたの保護を頼まれたもので、彼女の準備が整うまでの時間稼ぎでしたが、私があなたと話をしたかったのは事実ですよ。
The priest's attempt to smooth things over was far from sincere. Soshiro grit his teeth to control his rage. Why had they not stopped Oak and Alice from heading toward their certain death? Because both the nun and the priest were of the same ilk as the mage. As such, they understood Aoko's decision, and the priest understood Aoko too. Even if he didn't have the power to stop her, he would not have. The Aoka Osaki knew was not about to hide away in a church and lick her wounds.
アリスは
青子と行きましたよ。あれから30分は過ぎていますね。
Father Eddie went so fast to divulge the time. 30 minutes ago, the same time the priest prepared his head. It would not take even half a minute long to get to the school from here. And then another 10 minutes or less to get to Misaki High School's old school building from here. So she returned to the entrance of the chapel. However,
待ちなさい。どこへ行くつもりですか？
the sound of a voice stopped him in his tracks. An unseen pressure had locked him in his place. Her motion seemed to carry a spellbinding power, stopping the foolhardy boy where he stood.
あなたは魔術師同士の争いを知りません。何の助力にもならないばかりか、彼女たちの足かせになるだけです。彼女たちが命を落とすのは彼女たちの業によるもの。望むままに傷つけ合えばいいでしょう。あなたのような何の咎もない若者が教示に立ち会うことはありません。
She spoke with quiet anger. Her contempt was not directed to Aoko or Alice, though, but Sashiro for being so eager to waste his life.
何かしら希望があるのなら私も止めはしません。ですがこの件は別です。あなた
She was right. It would all be pointless of him to go. At the amusement park, he had been useless in the end. Now, they faced something even worse. He couldn't even imagine how he might control by this time.
言っておきますが、青崎青子は祖父に護身術を教え込まれています。魔術以外でもあなたより腕は立つ。その彼女もあの使い魔が相手では勝負にならない。
So Shiro's physical strength, his only edge, meant nothing. If he went now, he would only get in their way. Yurika was correct. And yet,
でも行かないと。青子には返さなくちゃいけない借りがあります。
he spoke humbly but firmly. Though almost moved, the sister frowned slightly. She felt bad for him, but her warning was for his own good. If he would not listen to reason, then she would have to make him sleep. She raised the finger of binding at
そ
Sojiro.
れを言うなら返したい借りがあるですよ、操縦。それとシスターユイカ、教会内での魔術は控えてくださいね。使うのなら筆跡に留めてもらわないと私の査定に響きます。まったくおとなしそうに見えて律香君より短気なんですから。
エイリ神父、しかし
行かせてあげればいいじゃないですか。それともあなたはやはり青子たちに退場してほしいと？
その問題と彼の献身は別の話です。改めなさい、しずきさん。あなたが言っても
The truth is statement could cut Sojiro deep. But despite everything that was being said, his mind was made up. It always had been, even if he was not certain. He at least would not hesitate. He would always follow his instincts to the end, no matter where they took him.
分かっています。でも行かないと。ここにいたら本当に何もできない。
His hand burned in his chest. While he listened to the priest talk, he could not only think of seeing Aoko, but was not worried he did not want to help. He just wanted to see her. He would figure out what came next once he got there.
ほら、献身なんて考え自体が間違ってるんです。足を引っ張ると言いますが、どの道青子たちに勝ち目はないんでしょ？なら彼がマイナスになってもいいじゃないですか。
神父。
ほら宗十郎君、言って言って。シスター、今のあなたの返事で心が折れましたから。足動くでしょ？
As soon as the priest pointed to Sojiro, he could move again. The pressure weight on his shoulders lifted along with the fear of his heart. Could he help? Would he expose Aoko and Alice to more danger? All such stuff had vanished.
行きます。縁が残っていればまた。
はい、 なんであれ後悔のない一日を。
And with that, the shooter began to run. Father Eddie watched for lack of satisfaction. The priest knew if he could not pursue Elko, he could not convince the shooter Aoife. He watched the impetuous boy run away. As the blind man listened to his footsteps fade into the distance, Yurika was different from Sujiro and the priest. But she showed no mercy to corruption of their rashness. She embraced benevolence to the innocent. Such an ordinary boy with his life ahead of him, and yet choose to follow heretics into hell.
最悪ですね、エイリ神父。分別のつかない子供を導くのが責任のある大人だと思いましたが。
She made no effort to hide her biting disapproval. It was simply her way of showing concern for the boy. Father Eri shrugged.
だからいろいろと間違えていますよ。責任のある大人なんて言葉自体がおかしい。何が起きても責任を取る。それが正しい大人というものです。
The rest went unspoken. It didn't matter to him which of them died. With warm godly smile, the priest corrected the nun's misunderstanding. Junction. Sehr schön. War wohl doch nichts optional. Ich nehme an, wir haben noch zwei Kapitel vor uns. Also zwei mandatory Kapitel vor uns und der Rest ist doch optionales. Wir werden uns dann wahrscheinlich vielleicht morgen, auf jeden Fall vielleicht Montag, auf jeden Fall am Mittwoch um Kapitel 12. Oder was, 13? Ja, Kapitel 12 machen wir morgen. Dann mal adios.